Oh, forgot the microphone. Hello. That's what happens when you relax in between the talks, right? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the talk between Chelsea Blasko and Tracy McGarrigan. Are we excited? Are we excited? Yeah, there we go. You'll do better when they come out on stage, right? Yeah? Yeah? Promise. Okay, Tracy is CEO and co-founder of Ansible Comms. She's one of games industry biz's top 100 influential women in games. She is who investors and C-suites call when they need a straight-talking, smart-thinking ally to fix complex problems, build incredible teams, and get work done. Chelsea Blasko is the CEO of Iron Galaxy Studios, one of the world's largest independent video game developers. She's also a board member of Women in Games International, doing important work with industry peers to promote and advance representation. But you don't need me telling you about Chelsea, because we will hear all about her right now. Welcome, Chelsea Blasko and Tracy McGarrigan.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, let's get comfy.
Oh, here we go.
I know. We only have 30 minutes to delve into every deep, dark crevice of your life.
Oh, that sounds like something I didn't agree to.
It's too late. We're up here.
We're up here. I'm mic'd up. Uh-oh.
I'm so excited to have this chance to talk to you, though. I'm very privileged in my job. I get to meet lots of fabulous CEOs.
Well,
but I
you.
don't think I have had the chance to talk to a CEO with such a long career, especially a female CEO in the games industry. And someone who I know is already described as someone who takes uncompromising care of your team. So I know that everybody here is wanting to hear your leadership journey. But I thought we'd start with, let's go way back when. Just before you got into games, I know that you were a high school German teacher.
I was, and girls' PE as well.
And I didn't realize girls' PE as well.
I had a whistle.
At the same time?
Sometimes, yes.
And I know that you... Now, this I find interesting. You ran a boutique, antique, and housewarming gift store for distinguished ladies.
It was for the ladies who lunch crowd, as we would say, very fancy ladies. And that was actually where I learned about business. I was very shy. I kind of thought about teaching as I'm playing Frau Blasko.
Yes.
And then but going into starting a business, because I oversaw construction to the door opening to everything, I really had to learn a lot about business. And that was my first experience, and having to get over some of my being shy, deal with contractors and vendors and clients and everything like that. But I definitely was the weirdest thing out there by far, but it was a good 4 years of experience, I think.
So what was the moment that you discovered games? What was the hook that got you into the games industry from such a non-games related space?
Well, I had zero idea what you could be when you grow up. I just, most people worked at a factory. I just had no idea. I loved games when I was a kid, and I'd go to my cousins and I'd play Atari, or at home. I was telling Tracy last night, my mom would freaking out playing Pac-Man. And I was telling her it's genetic because I do that. And then my son also just jumps everywhere. So we take games that are not meant to be active and make them active for sure. And my neighbors had Donkey Kong, so I'd make sure I'd get kind of stuck over there. I come from the Oregon Trail. I got dysentery a lot. But that inspired me to sign up for, because I was such a nerd, summer school basic coding classes. But I never had any idea making games was a real job. It wasn't like there were courses and things like that when I was younger. So I really fell into it backwards. I was like, ooh, creative industry. And this, as I'll tell you, was a real mistake. I thought, oh, it's going to have like regular hours, not like retail. It's going to be like a regular adult job. So yeah, I kind of fell into it when there happened to be an opening at EA Chicago in Chicago where I was living. Yeah.
And how was the application process at that moment? Then?
Oh, the application process.
Previous experience?
Well, basically, I had a former coworker, and she had gotten a job there, and she said, oh, I know this other woman who I think would be great. And, you know, they were looking for women to be producers. And so I went in, and the first thing that happened in my job interview was they made fun of the way I was dressed. Because I thought, I know it's creative, so I knew I didn't have to be in this like very proper, all-ironed, conservative outfit that I had worn the last few years, but I still wanted to look nice. I had, you know, a skirt and like a houndstooth shirt. They said, don't you know we're slobs here? What the hell are you wearing? And, you know, I try to remain poised. And it was definitely very different than any interview I'd been in before. Yeah. And one of the things I was like, well, what would I be doing in my role? I haven't worked in games before. I'd really like to understand more what you're looking for. You'll be doing some shit, was the answer. I asked a couple times what I would be doing, and he leaned farther over the desk, like that would just be more shit. Communicative. Yeah. And then I later realized 20 years into it that was probably the best description of my career in games. But yeah, it was very strange. And when I got called back for a second interview, I had no idea what to expect.
What did you wear for round 2?
Probably like just a T-shirt and something, you know. I tried to look a little more crappy, I guess. But it was a more normal slate of interviews where I had, you know, 2 or 3 people throughout the day I was talking to in hour chunks. And I do remember one of the odd questions was, you know, what would you do if I told you to go around the studio and ask everyone if they wear boxers or briefs? And I said, well, I'd ask, how does that apply to the game we're making? So, and then I got hired, and I was actually given the choice to either start as the assistant to the GM or to work on the game right away. And I decided to be the assistant, which turned out to be a really great decision because I got to see so many aspects of the business I wouldn't have if I had started right on a product, both working on the product, whenever someone needed someone to jump in and maybe photograph textures for artists, or doing some QA work, or have an uncomfortable conversation with an artist who had perhaps modeled something anatomically correctly that didn't need to be there. So it was definitely a lot of different things, and also getting my boss's car out of the impound. I had to learn to think really quickly, and just whatever, I had no idea what was going to come at me, really.
Yeah. Do you think that shaped who you are as a leader? I mean, we're going to talk about, you know, sort of how you've got there. We also have
this is some of me throughout the years. Yeah.
This 2006.
So 2006 is basically when that's at EA. That's when I got into games, basically. 2007 was the Def Jam, the first game I worked on, the release party. Then 2008, I was working on a Tony Hawk product in 2008, 2009 at another small studio because I got laid off. EA Chicago shut down completely. And then 2010, that was my first day at Iron Galaxy. And then, you know, I did a lot of demoing, Racketeer, I demoed Dive Kick. And then here we go. We had a little foray into publishing. I was trying to rep Video Ball there, so just kind of moving through the years.
And I mean, you were employee number 13 at Iron Galaxy.
Yes.
And you've made your way to CEO.
Yes.
A story that's been 20 odd years in the making.
Yes. Yeah, started as an assistant and then,
What have been the big sort of milestones along this path that have got you to where you are now?
I think it comes back to being willing to wear a lot of hats and jump in and look around and do whatever was needed, but not do it in a totally disruptive way. Even back at EA, I'd work like 8 a.m. to midnight. And the later shift, I was doing training videos for Def Jam Icon. And it was just a video production guy, the art director, and myself. And the art director stopped showing up and thought it would all fall apart. And I just kept it going because it needed to be done. So I think that really shocked him. And then I was producing full projects. I worked mostly on the art side at first, then full projects. Then at Iron Galaxy, I was really lucky that, Dave was very supportive. Dave is our founder. I was the second non-programmer. There was an art person who's also, though, very technical. He's the best mix of visual and technical I've ever seen in an artist. And I started off as a senior producer, but I just kept seeing, as we're growing, we probably need a process for hiring people. As we're growing, maybe your aunt doing our 401k, our retirement benefits, isn't going to scale. If we're growing, blah, blah, blah. And so the last game I worked on was Killer Instinct Season 2 and 3 as game director. And I really loved that. And I loved being a dev. But at that point, kind of no one else wanted to do the business stuff. And so it was easy to step into that hole that needed to be filled and drive the studio forward.
I hope the HR processes have improved from when you first, started your journey.
Yes, they definitely
of just being shouted at about what you're wearing. But how have you seen leadership teams, how they're formed and how they operate? How has that changed from when you first started back in 2006 to what you see today?
I think there are a few different, key things that have changed. One, it used to be that just the best animator or the best programmer was was promoted to be a people manager. And they're not always the best people manager. So you end up with perhaps a crummy people manager, and now you also lost your best animator and the skills that they were contributing. So I think we're a lot more thoughtful today about making sure, one, that people self-identify that they're interested in people management. And then at Iron Galaxy, we let people kind of flex in and out of it up into a certain level of leadership where maybe your next project, you're hands-on keyboard, but you're a people manager on the project after that. And so we have a bench of people who have those skills, but managing people is hard. And especially if you come up as a developer, you are so used to seeing tangible work that you produce. And I think what I see in leaders, one of the hardest things for them to feel comfortable with is no longer producing tangible work, to understand that the intangible is now the most important. The conversations they have, the time they take to comfort someone who's freaking out about either something related to work or something personal while in the office. And it's a lot harder to go, well, cross that off, Jira. Jimmy was crying in the bathroom today and I helped him feel better. It's never in your list of Jira tasks. So you really have to let go of a lot of what you thought were your accomplishments. And you have to grieve them. And some people, it's a lot harder or takes a lot longer for them to let go. People often tell me if I don't do that anymore, what will I do? How will I be valuable? And I'm like, I have never given something up and had nothing to do after giving it up. And you need to recognize too, if you don't give it up, no one else can grow. So you need to allow other people the opportunity to grow as well.
How did you manage that mind shift of being someone that was hands-on? You'd be in the creative deep end, you'd be rolling your sleeves up, to the fact that when you become a leader, I think the stat is 10% of your time goes on every person that you have to manage. How did you personally manage that shift from creative into I'm not going to be hands-on anymore?
Yeah, I think part of it was always the thing I was most passionate about, and I could always get excited about whatever IP, whatever project I was working on. I think that was something EA instilled in me. But I was most passionate about my team and my team health coming up through production. So when I saw that what was needed was really the overall team, the overall studio health, and getting people, the right people to talk to each other and making sure, the right processes were happening. When I saw that that was lacking in some places, I feel like I wasn't, even though I enjoyed it so much, I wasn't just married to one idea, always having worn a lot of hats and always being a big advocate for my team, sometimes to my own detriment, honestly. I just kind of jumped in and on one of our moves, it was a designer and I pulling Cat 6 cable because somebody needed to do it, and we only had one IT person and 30,000 square feet of space. So I've just never been reluctant to go, this is what needs to be done in this moment. And also, again, Dave has been very supportive in that. And we've had different personalities where we can balance each other out along the way.
Because you're about 230?
We're about 230 people now. So that's myself and Dave, our founder, in the blue. And then the other guy is Chad, who has had many roles as Iron Galaxy as well. We were in Kuala Lumpur there. But also at Iron Galaxy, even as a leader, I was like 3 months pregnant in that picture and no one knew yet. But I felt like it was the first time in my life I could have the space to do that. Even with the growth. And I felt more supported than I had along the way. And now I feel even more supported with the leadership team that we've developed over the years.
Do you think the culture of leadership has changed?
Yes.
For the better?
Yes, I definitely think it has. Because back at EA and even at my second studio, it was really this R-rated kind of leadership, and you didn't necessarily get to be a person you liked yourself or you wanted to be. The second situation, being a leader, meant often telling people things you didn't want to even tell them because you knew they were unfair. But you have to be able to kind of pull from within. And that was what I always did for my team. But now it's a much more PG environment. There's not screaming in the face and, just all kinds of wild shenanigans, like Wolf of Wall Street era party shenanigans going on all the time.
So we've gone from R wild to PG wild.
Yes.
But it's still tricky. And you've navigated through the pandemic and remote working, which I know is a really big thing that leaders are still facing today. How are you tackling that at Iron Galaxy?
Yeah, that was a big change for sure. But we were already a bit prepared because we had the multiple studio locations and we always worked with external partners. So we had some idea, we thought we really knew how to do it, to co-develop with everyone. And then during permanent remote time, during COVID, we really re-examined a lot of the process and realized, okay, we could do even better. I think you also have to realize, and all your leaders have to realize, you are nurturing multiple cultures. You're nurturing the culture of the entire studio, the remote studio, and then as well as the different locations. They all have a little different feeling, but they all have to share the same values. They don't have to have the exact same interests. So that was one of the things too, to even always make sure when it was only remote to be present and looking into my window and smiling so that people could hopefully receive what I was saying in a good way.
Yeah. How are you maintaining that energy? What's that secret sauce for you that has allowed you to manage and build, these large-scale teams over a long period of time as well?
I think it is really, like I was saying, like being able to pull it from within. Especially if you're growing a team from something, you're not stepping in and becoming the new, third-party VP at PlayStation or something, because that already has this giant structure and you're part of that, and that's a different type of leadership experience. When you start with something small and grow it up, I think the real secret sauce is that often no one is telling you what to do. No one is telling you you did a good job. No one is telling you if you did it right. You only hear when you really mess it up, and then hopefully you receive that and try to make it better. So you really have to have... I didn't think I was this self-confident a person, but I really had to believe in all the people around me and believe in my facilitation skills to move things forward, and believe in my mentorship. Yeah. And it's really funny now to see 15 years into Iron Galaxy, some of the same things that I used to kind of complain about or want to change. Now, my leaders who I have mentored are having the same frustrations. Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, it took me this long to convince you of it. Let's see, hopefully it doesn't take them as long to convince the next person when they're mentoring as well. Yeah.
What do you do in your downtime then to bring that balance to you?
Oh gosh, I love gardening.
Do you have any downtime?
So this is actually something I am struggling with my senior leadership team on.
Right.
Some of my most pivotal and epiphanies have come in downtime.
Right.
I had a really profound business realization walking around getting bitten by a million mosquitoes in Vermont. And I was there for 2 days. So I have tried to become more disciplined to realize that pausing is important and that having some downtime is important. And I try to encourage my senior leaders that we shouldn't always be in survival mode. When you're in survival mode only, you have a harder time being creative and thoughtful. And I think a lot of us are used to being the firefighter triage person. And so that's something else you have to learn how to slow down a little, because you're looking for other things. Someone else should be doing that low-level deep dive triage. I did that for years, but now that's no longer my job. I think a lot of being a leader is realizing what's no longer your job, which sounds really weird, but you need some time to think and to have some distance so that you can hear different sides of things and understand the problem in a more complete way, even than if perhaps you were the game director or where I really thought I understood all the problems. Yeah. But you just get more and more context too. And it takes a while to absorb that context and have that balance too of people and business. You're constantly balancing, I want to do the most I can for my people, but I also don't want it to be so much that we put ourselves out of business. So how do I balance those decisions for the good of the most people there? Yeah.
I know that you've described the role of being a CEO as sort of, you have to give some of those moments over. Being a CEO is, you have to take the role because you simply can't do every role yourself.
No.
So that idea of build a good team and you can build anything, but surrounding yourself. How have you learned to spot what good looks like?
Yeah, I think good often equals caring. Mm-hmm. People who actually really care about the company as much as I do, as much as the founder does, but not in a completely unhealthy way where they can't stop ever, right? But there is just some caring. They exhibit, again, similar values. They care about our people. So that was one of the hard things, finding the right HR leadership for us, was it's like, no, we're not just looking for the legal answer and that's the way we're going to do it. And not that we're doing everything illegally. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But we wanted someone who was not just trying to like cover the butt of the company, who also cared about the employees. And I think when employees come in, that's something sometimes they're a little like, oh my God, I can't trust them. And it takes a while for them to build that trust. And at first, it didn't make sense to me because I was so used to, this is how we do it here. Why would you not trust them? And I had to remember back, like, I didn't trust some of those people in my previous roles either. They didn't have my best interest at heart.
Yeah, it sounds like communication in your career has been sort of the wild down to the... Actually, it's very a small group of people who know the way.
Yes.
And are you feeling like you've found that balance of if you're transparent and you're communicating with the team, they are beginning to trust? Or is there still an element where people go, but we're waiting for you to give us the final nod so we know it's okay? If Chelsea says green light, then we go.
I think, when new people come on, I think it takes them a little while because we need to earn their trust. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to just give it to us blindly because we've told them. Mm-hmm. It's good that they're a little skeptical and they kind of see. Some people, it takes longer than others, depending on the PTSD they have from their previous job. Even for myself, when I first started as a producer at Iron Galaxy, it was milestone night, it's build night. The guys were staying a little bit later to get things done. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I'm still here. Dave, the founder, was like, what are you still doing here? And I was like, well, the build hasn't gone out. What do you mean? What am I saying? He's like, are you going to fix some bugs for us or something? And no, I was not. Everyone else was a programmer. I was probably not going to fix the bugs better than anyone else there. And in fact, most likely introduce more. So I left, and it felt so weird. I felt both lighter and guilty. Yeah. And there were those moments. I remember leaving EA at 9 p.m. one night, and the Starbucks was still open. And it had been months since I walked past an open Starbucks. And I thought, oh my God, did I forget something? So it's reframing. And seeing it again, seeing that you can trust. And then I realized, I didn't really think about it at first, but I had the power and the responsibility to make it a better culture. Yeah. And luckily, coming to Iron Galaxy, that was supported. I'd been somewhere else where I thought that would be the case, and it didn't work out that way. But it was real. We'd all been through a lot of really bad experiences, and none of us wanted to do that again. Yeah. And so we certainly try every day. We don't always get it right every day, but we certainly try to be thoughtful and to do the best we can. I often say our motto should be, Iron Galaxy, we try. I know it's not very exciting, but we sure do.
It's not bad, it's not terrible.
Yeah, Yoda would hate us, but
try okay. We must. I mean, it certainly sounds like you've had some challenging times, and I think for the history books of the video games industry, I think we do look back at that time and recognize that there were behaviors and there were people operating in ways that we wouldn't find acceptable now. What was the biggest personal challenge that you came through and then thought, we're never doing that again?
Oh my gosh, biggest personal challenge. I know it might be hard to pick one, but... Well, there was a time about 5 years into my career where games just landed me in the hospital because it was such a grueling and kind of demeaning and really rough situation. And that's kind of when I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I almost didn't go to interview at Iron Galaxy. You know, I'm very happy that I did.
Yes, the industry's very happy that you did.
Because 15 years later, I would have never imagined, you know, being at a studio for 15 years. But I do think, you know, one of the things that was good and bad was I didn't really question, you know, who should be in games or who I should be, or I had no idea. So I just kind of pushed through a lot of it without preconceived notions about it's going to be really hard. Or when I looked around, you know, there weren't many women. Yeah. In my second studio, I was the only woman out of 120.
Wow.
There was a woman at the front desk for some of the time, and myself. And I just kind of thought that's the way it was until, again, having the chance to develop leaders myself and knowing I can do this differently. Yeah. It doesn't have to be the same as what I've seen. I can try to encourage things to be different.
Yeah. So if you could go back in time,
yeah,
back to those first moments, and you could have a little whisper in your own ear, what would be the thing that you would tell yourself, knowing all that you know, to take forward?
I would take more chances, for sure, because most of the time when I took a chance, it worked out way better than I would have imagined. Yep. And I, you know, younger me was definitely practical to a fault. So I would do that, and I like where I ended up, so I wouldn't want to change too much, but I would tell people there are a lot of different cultures. I had someone who was just going to start out as a junior producer ask me for advice on, you know, should I go to Shell Games or Rockstar? And basically I was like, well, they're going to be two very different experiences. So what are your goals? What kind of culture works for you and will you be comfortable in? And you know, also if you are in a bad culture, if you were in, you shouldn't stay to the point where you end up in the hospital. Yeah, yes. There are other choices out there. There are better places for you to find a better situation. And I think there are more of those than ever at this time in the industry, luckily. People can find, you know, something that's hybrid or something that's in person or something that suits their lifestyle more than they could before, and not just get screamed at in the face or told that a producer always tells you to F off and you should just accept that. Yeah. You don't have to accept those things.
Yeah, so I mean that's a good takeaway if there's potential leaders in the audience. Yeah. Don't stand for being screamed at in the face, I think is...
No, and don't scream at people in the face. It's not effective. Yeah. And it doesn't grow other great leaders. Yeah. And it obviously doesn't work for keeping a studio alive. Yeah. You know, one of the studios, it's no longer around. Both of the studios I was at before Iron Galaxy disappeared, and they had some of those behaviors, and pitting teams against each other a bit too, where artists hated programmers and vice versa. And so as a leader, you really want to have a team that's cohesive and collaborative and isn't mad when, maybe they're mad for a second when someone introduces a bug, but it's about a problem solving now. Yeah. It's not about hating the other person or blaming QA. It's like, okay, well, maybe QA needs a new test plan next time. So as a leader, you should recognize that, not just, these idiots, and then never do anything about it, and it happens again just so you can complain. Yeah. That's not good leadership. Yeah. You need to take what you see around you that's going wrong and help people come up with a better solution to make it better together. Yeah.
We are almost coming up to time, so I'm keen to get your final sort of view on where are we going next? I mean, hopefully you've got another 20 years of, of bringing us all up to speed in the industry. What's your vision, and what's your message for us today that we should all be taking out as we go and explore the rest of Nordic Game?
Well, I think don't be afraid to let go of things, like I said before. That's super important as a leader to make sure that you're empowering other folks. I do think we've been in this rough space in games, so I think having more skills and wearing more hats is just as important as ever if you're out there looking for a job or a leadership role. And I do see things, I think everyone was making slogans for each year, but I do see things warming, and I do see opportunities for indies and other folks to, I think, kind of break in. As long as someone can find your game, you need that.
Yeah. And keep trying, I guess.
Keep trying. Definitely keep trying.
Beat the drum.
Don't put up with all of the bullshit, but keep trying.
Okay, no bullshit, keep trying. We are not going to have time for questions, but I know that Chelsea is going to be around for the rest of Nordic Game. Please come and say hello.
I will be outside the door here of the theater for a little bit if you have anything else that you want to hear about.
For now, please give a very warm thank you for Chelsea Blasko.
Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.